Health. The organisation Freedom Under Law says former President Zuma has gone too far in his defiance of the Constitutional Court order that he must appear before the State Capture Commission. It goes on to say the country has watched Zuma deploy what it calls clever tricks in a desperate attempt to avoid responding to accusations. I want to give you a considered view on this standoff now. It's bound to get uglier. Let me talk to Professor Roger Southall, commentator and Professor Emeritus at Wits University. Professor, good afternoon to you and welcome. You've written this in The Conversation. Zuma has now resorted to his well-worn defence of victimhood wrapped in populism. Do you agree with Freedom Under Law that he's gone too far?
Yes, absolutely. I think this may be a moment when action actually gets taken against President Zuma after a very long time. What sort of action do you think is in the offing, Professor?
Well, I'm not completely sure how it's going to go about, but I can't imagine that the Zondo Commission can allow this to continue. It's laid a criminal charge, and I think ultimately it's going to have, the authorities at some point are going to basically have to put the boot in and, if necessary, arrest Jacob Zuma.
And to that point, you also write that he is skilled at playing the victim. And this, you'll tell me no doubt, is a classic case.
Yes, I think he's clearly lost now the legal grounds for resistance. So he's going to go a political route and try and raise the costs to the authorities of arresting him, charging him, and potentially sending him to jail. These are very high stakes he's playing. It's a very dangerous game. It raises the prospects of him trying to mobilize political support for him on the streets. These are tactics he has used previously in his court cases. If we go back to the infamous surroundings of the rape case, the rape charge which he faced a long time ago. And I think he's going to try and play that game again. I'm not completely sure he has a clear idea of how that would work out, nor do I either. But I think it ends up being a very important test case for the government and for the ANC.
I suppose we've got to ask that question about political support in the streets. Do you think it could be as strong as it always was, or possibly diminishing? Again, it's difficult to give an answer to that, isn't it?
It is very difficult. My guess it's going to be less than it was because he is clearly out of power. I think that the latest revelations will have made quite an impact upon people, and even those people in the ANC who have traditionally supported him. I think it raises the costs for them of explicitly backing him. But on the other hand, these are very dangerous times. We live in an economy which has been shattered, and potentially there is a possibility that he will get that important level of support. But then at some point, the government and the ANC are going to have to take this head on, because ultimately you cannot allow a former head of state in a democracy which says everybody is equal before the law to simply get away with it by using political chicanery.
And the ANC at this point has been fairly reticent in saying anything. In fact, if I recall, it says it's going to look at the issue within the next 2 weeks. We've got to ask the question then, do you think the party has the gumption to do anything?
That's a really tough question, and I would be guessing as much as you would be. I think the ANC has shown a long tradition of trying to duck the issue and is going to be very reluctant to take a firm position. But ultimately, I think that the NPA and the authorities are completely going to lose credibility unless they take action in this particular case. Everybody else who is under threat of prosecution is simply going to say, if President Zuma can break the law with such lack of consequence, why me?
Professor, are we extrapolating all of this slightly when we say that there are comparisons between the former President Jacob Zuma and the former President Donald Trump?
No, I don't think so. I think there are strong comparisons, actually. We've got Trump facing an impeachment charge on a very serious charge of staging that, what many people have called a coup attempt. And he's facing impeachment. But I think the difference there is that we know that impeachment is actually a political process. Of course, the Democrats are saying there are legal issues there, that he has broken the Constitution. But ultimately, we always know that impeachment is a political process. In this particular case with former President Zuma, we are now very much in the terrain of the law. And it is former President Zuma who is trying to take it out in the other direction and put it into the political court.
Just a final question to you. Let's assume this goes according to the narrative, the script that you have outlined, that he is arrested, he appears in court, he doesn't give evidence before the Commission. When that final report comes out, how much credibility does it lose because we haven't heard from one of the main protagonists?
It's a very difficult question to answer, and I'm not completely sure I can answer it. I think that Justice Zondo is going to have a very difficult task anyway in bringing together a report which has a lot of evidence, but there's going to be a lot of stuff missing from that. I think he's going to have to point us in general directions. So I'm not completely sure I can answer that. I think we're going to have to wait and see.
As you say, though, we do live in very dangerous times at the moment. Professor Roger Southall of Wits University, as always, thank you very much for joining me.